So we want to look at how far apart numbers are on the number line. So if we take a look at -4 and +9, we want to know how far apart they are on the number line. So if we take a look at -4, maybe it's right about there. +9, maybe somewhere around there. Okay, if we want to know how far apart they are, really we're asking what is the difference between those two numbers. Okay, the difference between those numbers tells us how far apart. Okay, so if I want to know the difference, I subtract. I'm just going to go 9 minus -4, and I end up with 13. So we have a difference of 13. So if we take a look at +89 and +23, so here's +23, +89 is maybe somewhere around here. And again, we want to know how far apart they are or the difference between those two number places. Okay, so remember that integers are locations of numbers, and we want to find out how far apart, so we want to know the difference. So I'm going to subtract these numbers. So 89 minus 23 gives us a difference of 66. Okay, so that's how far apart they are. Difference means we subtract. We want to know how the distance or difference between those two numbers. Okay, and again, those numbers represent places on the number line. So that's the difference or distance. Okay, we want to look at something more specific, something called displacement. And displacement is not just how far apart things are, but in which direction we're going. Okay, so to have direction, we need to have a starting and an end point. So when we talk about displacement, we're talking about the difference between the end position minus the start position. So this is something that we talked about at the beginning of the year when we looked at integers. We're talking about displacement when we do end minus start. Okay, and that gives us a direction in which we're going. So if I take a look at -13 and +22, so I'll draw my number line out. Okay, so here's -13, somewhere around here. 0 and +22. Okay, I want to know how far it is going from the starting position of -13. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to go in this direction. Okay, go to the right, and I'm going to end at +22. Now, really this is also distance. The difference here is now I've given it some direction. So I know I'm going specifically from -13 as my starting to +22. And to find the displacement, we use the end minus start. So I start at +22, and I'm going to find the difference, or I'm going to subtract -13. So the displacement then works out to be, in this case, the displacement works out to be +35. So that is not just 35. So if I was talking about the distance between those two numbers, I'm talking about they're 35 units apart. But in this case now, because we're talking about displacement, displacement has direction. So it's going in a positive direction. So -22 minus -13 gives me +13. That gives me a displacement of +35 or +35. So taking a look at, if we start at +14 and we end up at -3, okay, we're going to have, we want to know the displacement. In this case now, we're going to go to the left because there's my starting point. The -3 represents my ending point. Okay, so I'm going to go in this direction, starting at this point, and I'm going to go to the left. So this is going to represent my displacement going left. Okay, going in this direction. So I need to make sure I put an arrow pointing in that direction, and I'm going to end up at -3. Okay, so what's my displacement then? The distance is going to be 17, but what's my displacement? So displacement is always going to be the end minus the start. So I'm going to have my end minus the starting value, starting position, plus 14. So negative 3 minus positive 14 is going to give me a displacement of negative 17, or 17 to the left. Okay, so there's my displacement. Now I'm giving it my distance between the 2 points. I'm going to give it now direction. So when I start at 33, so here's my number line again. So I start at positive 33. Okay, so there's going to be my starting position, positive 33. My ending position, I'll do in green here, is at positive 5. I'm going to go in this direction here, going to the left. So I want the displacement, so I want to know the distance between, but also the direction. So it's going to go left. Okay, so I'm going to end there. So I'm going to start with my end position, so positive 5 minus, and I'm going to subtract the starting position of 33. Positive 33, and that's going to give me a direction of negative, so I'm going to go to the left. So I'm going to go left, or negative 28. So there's my displacement. So displacement not only gives us the distance between the two, it also tells me in which direction I'm going. So that's very important when I talk about, we're going to use this in the context of slope, because we want to know whether we're going up or down. We want to know if we're increasing or decreasing.